Hi everybody, this is another tutorial for Archimatix in Unity, and today I'm going to show you this little building that I've made before. Well, this is a little more advanced version of the building that I'll make in this tutorial, but I just wanted to go ahead and show you to give you some ideas of where this can go if you spend a little time tricking out your building with some materials. These are substances, and polishing your model so that some of the details include like windows and whatnot. But this is not the important part of this model. What I'm doing, edit individual parts of this model, and I think, as you can see, this is actually like three small little individual, I guess you'd call them buildings, but they're really just pieces of a model that each alone is parametric, and they are designed in a way that the bases are nested, so you can kind of just squish the buildings together and come up with your own entirely new configurations. And what my main design problem in Archimatix, and I guess it's a design problem, maybe it's a user problem, is that I open a scene and I don't know how to start, how to design a building. I mean, I know how to like engineer a building, but what do you plan for? What design principles do you need before you start designing and before you create these things? So this tutorial is partly a how-to, but also some advice. And I wanted to show you this model because it's actually like really cute. I like this little round tower, and there's also a special effect that I'm doing. So this is going to be a bit more of an advanced tutorial, partly because I'm doing a number of things at the same time. So I have a merging floor plan. All three of these little, I guess they're rooms, but they merge together into one building. And I've shaded, or I've added a different material to each section, so you can kind of see how this model fits together. And then, if you stick around to the end, I will show you the awesome terror that is using this contour node as a roof line. And this is not really what the contour node is designed to do, but it works well enough if you don't push it. Okay, now here's the actual model that we're going to build. It's exactly, let me shrink down. It's exactly the same engineering under the hood, or in the graph, although this version of the graph, since this is a rebuild, this version of the graph is much neater. But I'm going to explain how I made all of this. And what I've done here now is I've kind of simplified the model in some ways, but you see I've also made some other design choices. Once again, I've added three materials, so you can kind of see how this model breaks into the same three rooms. And of course, you can make a much bigger model with more rooms if you want, but we're going to keep it simple so that we can do this all in real time. All right, before I get started, this is the design philosophy. So I went on Wikipedia, and there's a pretty common way that houses were built, starting around the 1400s and up through the 1600s. One of the things that I researched when I was looking up how medieval houses kind of evolved, or how houses evolved, was something called a hall house. And in the early medieval period, houses were just one room, and it was a really big room. It was about, it was basically like the biggest room that you could build and put a fire in the middle of it. And you had a hole in the top and, to let the smoke out. And that was your building. And a really common way to build the house was what used to be the hall, just the one room, grew 2 rooms, which eventually became wings of the house as the houses grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And the really simple divide is the hall, which was the center part, kind of remained like the public area. And then there was a residential lobe of the house, a wing, which in our design was going to be over here on the right. That kind of follows the Wikipedia article. And this became the residential area for sleeping, for privacy. And then over on the opposite end was the working end of the house. So this was the kitchen, the larder. If you had a medieval business, say a blacksmith, this would be the blacksmithy. And so you would have kind of this common public area, the hall. Then you'd have your private area, and then you'd have the working area. So when I build this house, that's going to be our 3 designs. Is we're going to have a working area, we're going to have a central hall, and we're going to have the residential. Now, today is obviously not the medieval period. Today we live in the era of McMansions, and we have long since lost the design philosophy of why a house was kind of divided into these lobes, and instead we just have these crazy kind of roof lines that sort of all merge together, and window styles and coverings that are sort of mishmash and go all over the place and borrow from trends all over the world. But we're going to simplify this model. So just to start, let me hide this. And I'm going to start a brand new model. Now we're into the tutorial. I'm going to start with my 3 room sections. And for this model, we're just going to use rectangles. And I'm going to select all 3 and then hit this shape merger, and now I have I'm going to go ahead and turn on all 3 models, but that doesn't really matter because what I'm going to do is the output is going to be union, and you can't see them. You can't see them yet because they're all overlapping. Let me just drag these apart by selecting the individual rectangles, and I'm just going to grab this center and pull it off to one side. And yeah, okay, so now we have our 3-room house, and that's the end of the tutorial. Just kidding. Yeah, I know, I'm so hilarious. Okay, so let's first lay down a foundation. So from this union of all 3 shapes, I'm going to just do a simple extrude. Nothing too fancy. This is going to be our foundation. So we're not going to do an interior, so we're not going to worry about floors or interior walls or interior trims. It's just going to be exteriors. We're going to keep it simple. So I'll give it like some kind of stone foundation. It doesn't really matter. That's fine. And already you can kind of start working with these shapes. And there's some things that are really easy to do in the graph, and there are some things that are really easy to do in the scene view. And we're gonna set up some complicated things in the graph so that we can do easy things in the scene view. You see how that works? We gotta be difficult so we can be easy. Yeah, that's how that works, unfortunately. All right, I've got my 3-lobed house, and they're all kind of the rooms are overlapping now. I think my foundation is a little high. And that control is the height parameter on my extrude. I'm just going to set it to like 0.5 for starters, and we're going to ignore it for a few minutes. Let me hide that shader material. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. I'm sure you didn't need me to tell you how to like merge 3 rectangles into one big foundation. So what we need to do is get each room individually with the other 2 rooms subtracted. And it looks like our big union foundation in that we select all 3 and add a shape merger. But how we set up our shape merger is going to be a little different this time. Whereas before we picked union, and we got all 3 kind of merged, moshed together. This time I'm going to do, I think it's difference rail. And now if I did difference, that's my closed shape. Difference rail is just the outside wall, and it's not terribly interesting at the moment. Let me just drag this down so that you can kind of confirm that, yeah, you see that little lower jigsaw piece, and I'll do the opposite on this one so that we can kind of keep track of what everybody's doing. All right, so this is according to my Hull House evolution, this is the working area wall. And I'm just going to do this again. I'm going to add 2 more shape mergers. Bing and bing. And yeah, thank you for wiring that up. That's not what I wanted, but that was very considerate of you. You see, I'm going to try to keep everything in line here. So for my central, my hall, I'm going to grab the shape from the middle room, and that's going to be my primary input. Then I'll grab the other 2 rooms and add them. And you see it's giving me the full room, but I want the difference rail to just get the walls. And for our last one, the 3rd room, our residential shape will be the primary, and I'm going to add the other 2 to subtract with difference rail. And difference rail. where are we at? I think we're ready to throw in an extrude and get some working walls to start. So I'm just going to grab that difference rail and click on an extrude. And you're going to come down here like so. And my extrude wall is going all the way to my 0 level, but I actually want it to start at this foundation level. So I'm just going to go into my transform. I think I had, what, half a meter? That bumped it up. Close that transform, and I'm going to go ahead and start with a wall height of like 4 meters. Just a guess. It's a little hard to see what's going on, so I'm going to add my back face. Here it is down here at the bottom. And while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and set up my other 2 extrude walls by just hitting extrude and extrude. And look how clever Archimatix is by editing that first node, the ones that we drop in, by clicking just fill in, and we're keeping everything in a line. So this is not that hard. Even as we're expanding, it's gonna all make sense. So I'm gonna grab that difference rail and this difference rail. And now I can already see that I'm going to be setting the same parameters across several nodes. So I'm going to do something a little unorthodox. I'm just going to create a control node. And it's not going to do anything but hold my parameters. And I'm just going to use this custom node, which is probably a little overkill. This is basically a sample node included with Archimatix. It has like every kind of input that you can put on a node. But I'm just going to use it here for the add-on parameters. And what I have is my kind of my foundation height and then this wall height. So I'm going to call this floor height. You know what? I never want it to go into the negative, and I never want it to disappear. So I'm going to set a minimum of 1/4 of a meter. And I'm going to hit done. I'm going to add another parameter. This is going to be my wall height. And again, I never want this one to completely disappear, but I might want it to get short. I don't know. Maybe. I'm going to set its minimum to 1 meter. That's obviously way too short. Like, I'll probably keep it at 4 meters. In fact, I'll just type in 4 meters right now. And since I need to, like, route these everywhere, but I also might want to play with these, I'm going to make these runtime parameters. I'm not going to make a runtime controller because this model is really not going to be, like, suitable for runtime. But it will speed things up if I can just access these parameters on the inspector. So, because I don't like that custom node 12, I'm going to name it control. And hit done. And then down here in my 2 parameters, I'm going to expose Okay, now they're going to show up here in my inspector under runtime parameters, and as you can see, I can't drive it below my base setting, which is good, but it's not hooked up to anything. Quick, let's make those connections so that we don't have to do it again and again and again and again. So my floor height, well, my floor height is originally this extruder height, my foundation extruder. But it's also going to be the transform on my 3-wall extruders, Y transform. So for my wall height, these are instead the height on my wall extruders. Okay, let's test this out. Floor height, my foundation height, and my wall height. Okay, now they're all synchronized. I'll go ahead and put in those back walls real quick for those back faces, and let's keep things tidy. Already, I'm ready for my three materials, just so I can keep these sections organized. I'm going to use some default colors that come with Archimatix. Poche? I don't know what that word is. I've never heard that word before. Archimatix. Poche? All right, already we have the ability to kind of control our floor plans. Our building's not too interesting, but we have this merging room shape that we can easily and quickly manipulate in the scene view. Okay, now before I start adding on all the little window trims to each section of the house, I'm going to do a few trims to the house as a whole. So we're going to go back to our main foundation, and I want the foundation to extend just a little bit outside of the house. So where it comes in on the plan, I'm just going to add a little bit of an offset, really not much at all. I also want to add a trim to the top of the roof. That's going to be really important. That's going to, okay, not the top of the roof, the top of the wall. This is basically going to be like a fascia trim. And we're just going to use one of the stock moldings. I we'll use Ovalo. It's a nice generic molding trim. And I'm going to break one of my own rules by using a plan sweep, even though this is a big house, and that plan sweep's going to go all the way around. I think it's just going to look the best. So my molding goes into the section, and the plan is my union foundation. It's down too low, and we know how to fix that. It's the trans Y on my control node. So this is wall height. Into trans Y, but now wait. Something wrong. It doesn't quite go all the way up, and whoops, it's because I haven't done anything with my foundation height. Doesn't affect my fascia trim, but that's okay. I have another parameter, which is my floor height, and I'm going to plug that into the shape transform. And while I'm here, I'm going to make this a little smaller. This is going to be 0.5 and 0.5, and then I'll make those little uppers smaller as well. And yeah. Okay, I think you can see there's a lot we could do with this already. And this doesn't even have to be the scale of like a single building. This can be could be just about any. Oh, I hate that I just squashed my I got lost, sorry. I'm going to start in on a regular trim node that's going to be shared by a lot of the geometry, and I'm not going to be too cute about it. I'm just going to use white so it shows up for this tutorial. Okay, now the next thing I want is you don't have to really worry about the transitions between these wall materials, because we're going to go ahead and add some corner trims. And what's that going to look like? That's just going to be, I'll start with a square into an extrude. Add that material, and I want a plan repeater. Now this is going to be like a corner stud, I guess. So this is going to be a corner mesh. Plan is my main foundation. Union foundation. And I think we know where to get some parameters. The height will be the extrude of the, what is this, a post, a stud? And it's trans Y. Will be my floor height. Let's line these up. Now anytime I want to edit my model, I can just grab any of these shapes. Now there might be a problem when the shapes are completely disconnected. And that problem is that by using that difference rail to get just the walls, I'm getting open rectangle plan. So that means when these boxes are separated, they're missing a wall. We can use the difference instead, and that would give me the full room. Six of one, half dozen of the other. As long as you keep these shapes touching, you won't get a hole. So in some ways it's easier to just use the difference rail and build the walls. In other ways it's easier to use difference and build a room. That won't make sense to you until you try to do this on your own. All right, let's go ahead and make a set of windows, and I'll attach it, I'll wrap it around one of these walls, and then I'll do it again and again, and then we're almost done. Okay, simple window. I will use a rectangle, and this rectangle is going to go into an extrude. This is just going to be a cosmetic window. It's not going to cut through the wall. Since I know my window will always be a certain height above my foundation, I'm going to go ahead and connect my floor height into this, no, into this. The extruder transform Y, and repeater node. Let's try a cell mesh. You're going to have to play around with these settings, and your settings will be different than mine. And what's the plan? Let's build out our red section, which is the what did I call this? The working area. Okay, these windows basically look terrible. But you see where they're going to be. You see their placement. And here's another thing we can do in the scene mode. I can select any of these windows. And I can edit right here in the scene view. Since this is the working end of the house, we're going to need lots of light, whatever our job is. It's during the day, and we need lots of light coming in. So I'll make these windows pretty big. Here's a trick. On our extrude node, we have these lip top and lip edge. And it's not always clear what this is. Lip edge is like a little piece of the extrusion that separates and becomes its own surface. And we can actually texture that separately. So that's what I'll do. I'm going to give it a top cap material. I'll use the Archimatix glass. Now I'm cheating a little bit. I made this not opaque, and obviously we're not cutting away the wall behind. But see, this makes like a pretty simple window. It's got the frame and a window panel, window glaze, and of course you can put an actual texture on this, and it would look more. It would look more. I'm going to tidy this up by closing my originals. And I'm going to maneuver my repeater directly under my working wall section. All right, I'm going to do this again for the next two sections, and I'm going to be quiet while I do it, so I'll probably speed through it. Residential windows. Ta-da! Alright, let's play around just a minute. So, yeah, design philosophy is that the hall maintained its character as, you know, a big kind of public area with a lot of like fanciness. Residential area has privacy windows, and the working area has large picture windows just to let in light. Alright, so there's other things that I should have wired up. You know, for instance, all of my window heights should actually go off the floor height, but they don't. So as you can see, only my only my working end actually got that I am getting a little tired, and I think that you get the idea. I promised to show you one last thing, which was the contour node. And I got to take a break before I do that. So, okay, I took a quick break and I went ahead and wired up those windows, and I also played around with their shapes in the scene mode. So now my little 3-room house all follows the foundation floor height, and of course I have this wall height, which can go too low because I didn't lock that down, and I don't really know what to do with that yet, but it's there for when I start building this contour node roof. One other thing I forgot. On my little corner studs, they're aligning with the corner, not the wall. So that's an easy setting. Right in here on the repeater, the controls, corner angled. We don't want that. Okay, so now everything is lining up pretty attractively. We have an attractive little building that we can play around with. If you followed along, this is good. You have already got this. Go play. Now, if before we get into this contour node roof, okay, save, and save, because contour node used in this way, it's going to crash Archimatix, it's going to crash Unity, it's going to crash, and I'm going to show you exactly what makes it crash, and we're going to explain how to control this and tame this contour node. But just be prepared, when you start using it, you're going to hit contour nodes Achilles heel constantly. And once you learn how to deal with it, you'll be able to you'll be able to set it and leave it alone. First off, let's remove some extra, well, I'm going to hide some of this. I want to hide some of this extra geometry. So tidy up the graph. Now here's my top molding, and I don't actually need all of this geometry making my rooftop, so I'm going to turn off the top cap and bottom cap. What's going on there? Whatever it's doing it twice. I think I know what that is. Who are you? Yellow? On our plan repeaters, I had some closed nodes on the plan, and you see that it went ahead and created geometry that we don't want. So making that an open plan. Now what else I don't want is, I don't want any of this back-facing geometry, because I'll never be inside this house. So back on my extruders, I'm going to swing them all open. I'm going to turn off the back faces. All right, we've got an outside and no inside. But if you've been keeping score, take a look at your vertices, your vertex count. And while I'm here, I'm just going to save one more time. And I'm using a plugin called Full Screen. Yeah. All right. Contour node. As you can tell, I'm a little gun shy here. But I'm going to show you how to do it. I do think it's kind of spectacular. But first, a word about contour node. And it's this little character down here. Looks like Fudgy the Whale. I don't know if you grew up in the New York area, but Fudgy the Whale was an ice cream cake. You turned him upside down and it was some inane cartoon character, Cookie Puss, I think. Anyway, so it reminds me of that ice cream cake. This node is basically, all right, if you are not an advanced Archimatix user, or at least a mediocre Archimatix, experienced Archimatix user, just stop, because build the little 3-room house that I've shown you and play and have a ball for an afternoon. If you want, you can come back to do this contoured roof tutorial. This will break. You will be frustrated. It won't make sense. And the results are nice. But you won't be able to make this into a runtime model because yeah, this is not super stable. You're going to see that the way that the contour node builds. Well, first of all, the contour node is imagined to be like a terrain. It's imagined that you will create very large, like organic looking terrain. And it takes care of a problem that the extruder and plan sweeper can't do, which is it removes extra vertices and smooths it all together, but it has to build the shape and then it has to build a UV for the shape, and there's a whole process involved. It does happen in real time, but it can break, and when it does break, you'll lose the Archimatix graph or you'll crash Unity, and if you're not prepared, there's no coming back. So again, save and save and save. And I know I've told you that like 100 times, but I can't stress it enough. I know I've been just warning you and I haven't been telling you what goes wrong. Okay, here's what goes wrong. So contour node is sort of like terrain. First of all, it's scaled enormous, like terrain. When you attach a material to it, you'll be like, what the heck? This is enormous. But like terrain, it's got a top-down UV creation. So you can't curve, you can't do under curves, you can't do insets. It's got to be the entire geometry has to be seen from above, because that's how it creates its UV map. And the UV map it creates is just going to be a flat top-down projection. So as our shape node curves away from that top angle, there's going to be stretching, and if it goes perfectly vertical or if it inverts, you're going to crash. So I don't know, you might want to use free curve. Let's see if I can use free curve. I'm so scared, y'all. But I'm gonna do it anyway. I wonder if it will let me. Okay. What do I want, a Z or an X? I think it's an X. Give me an X. Alright, we're gonna use this graph. Gonna draw me a point way up in there in the sky. Okay. I'm gonna start with whatever this is, 0, or as close to it as I can get. And similar to that roof or dome ramp that I just showed you, it's gonna go from the bottom right corner to the top left. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna end it. That's it. I know, that was like, I needed a drum roll for that, right? I'm gonna select that point and turn it into a... Should I do a broken Bezier? Sure, why not? A broken Bezier. Okay, so this end of the broken Bezier is gonna bow out a little bit like that. But again, I'm being real careful that that doesn't undercut. And then my upper Bezier is going to do a little bubble or something. Something similar to... Oops. Again, be careful. Don't let it undercut like this. And don't go straight up and down. You got to have a little bit of a... It must be seen from above to create the UV map, otherwise it will fail. I think that's going to be it. I think that's going to be my shape, and I'll be able to edit it once we're going. I'm going to attach this to this section. And my plan is, of course, the union plan. And it was Labor Day weekend, so union. That's not it. It's trying to fool me. All right. Here we go. Don't crash. Look, we got something. It's in the wrong place. It's just too low. Okay, here's my goofy roof. All I need to do is lift it out of the house. I'm gonna make it like kind of appear to just sit right on that, on my house trim, something like that. And in fact, I'm going to swing open my plan and add just a little bit of offset. It's fine, not too much. Now, what you got, if you didn't crash, and please don't kill me if you did crash, is we have a wacky merged roof, where the shape is thicker and where the plan is bigger, we're getting more of that roof bubble, that little second tier that I made with the broken bezel. And where the plan is too thin, it drops down to the lower sections of that plan before that broken bezel. You see that? So by using contour node, I've got a 2-level roof. It is a little strange. For one thing, it's always smooth. It doesn't facet because, again, this is designed for making like large terrain contours. It fixes a problem in a limited way, and it works, but you got to work within its limitations. And that big limitation is that we need to give it now a material from top down. Now, if you remember, our grid, the Archimatix texture grid, is supposed to be 1 meter, and that's huge. Like 1 meter per grid. That's just enormous. So let's make a new material node. And I'm going to show you the other problem with this, using contour for a roof. Slate roof tile. Oh, no, okay. By the way, this all started because I wanted to like fake a thatched roof, and I did that, but it's not. Wait. Okay, here we are, planks. I just want to show you something with a directional tile. And first of all, it's just enormous. I'm going to grab the U scale and I'm just going to drag it way into the tiny. Something like that. Alright, so here's the other issue with contour node, is when it makes its UV texture by projecting from above, you know, this is not how roofs work. Right? Roofs don't like wrap up one side and down the other, but if you use a texture to create this roof, you've got to keep in mind that, you know, a normal shingle texture is not going to work because it will wrap completely over the top. So let me pick a different one. This is something a little more square, a little more broken up. And see, that's what I should be able to use, but that's like the best example of what you can't do. But so you see, this side looks great. This side, what? But how much do I love that roof node? Oh, it's so cool. Alright, so this is just vague. So I'm gonna go with the vague roof tiles. They seem big. Now you see when I'm typing in values, you see it flash the real roof. I mean, it creates the mesh and then it maps it. You understand? So there's another reason why you can't use this probably at runtime, because it's got to build the mesh and then build the UV texture. But you do get to have fun with that roof. Okay, while we're still talking about the roof, I'm going to show you how to break it and recover. First, I'm going to save. Save. And save again. And save again. Alright. Here's our little profile. Now, if you try this at home, be ready to be frustrated. You can still edit this curve, but be aware, the second that it goes undercut, or you end up with a line so straight that it can't make that UV map, you're going to lose your grid. And let me show you what that looks like. You see, I'm going to hold on to my Bezier handle here, and I'm not going to let go. I'm going to click and hold. And that's going to allow me to recover, I hope. So I'm going to drag this Bezier so that it undercuts. I've lost the Archimatix graph, but look, I'm still holding on. I'm still holding on. Okay? I still have Unity, and I'm still holding on. But I lost the Archimatix graph. You see I've got an error down there. Something about wah, wah, wah. Don't give me a zero shape. Okay, can you recover? No, apparently you can't. Okay, yep, you can recover. Alright, so if that happens, don't panic. You can maybe recover, as long as you still have the scene handles. As long as you have scene handles. Some nodes do not have scene handles. I'm going to break it again. Doop. Okay. Cross the line. And I guess it doesn't just automatically rebuild, so I have to jiggle one of these ends. Alright, don't panic. You can recover, you can work with this node, you just have to understand what it's doing. But if it will frustrate you if you don't know why it's like breaking. I'm gonna go ahead and put back in that little peak. Because why not? Actually, I'm going to ramp this one too. Oops. Okay. Alright, we still have a roof. We got a funky roof. Let's play around. This is pretty much the end of the tutorial. Go build this and, you know, throw in your textures, play with your windows. I'm gonna mess around with my shapes as we head out. Oops, not the window shape. Da, 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 da. Alright, if you learned something in this tutorial, go ahead and subscribe. If you thought it was helpful, go ahead and like. And if you want to be notified when the next tutorials come online, go ahead and ring the notification bell on the YouTube channel. I will see you in Discord. And probably also on the Unity forums. And if you have some suggestions for tutorials, like, there you go. You can pick out better textures than this. But you understand how it works. Oh no, I didn't show you like everything that can break with this contour node, but you'll find it. You'll discover on your own. Sometimes the UV map doesn't quite, leaves out some of the triangles. And like I said, you can't ever get that like a hard faceted node, so these kind of, you get these kind of curved shadows that are a little meh. And hopefully your texture will hide that. But basically everything that I've shown you today, you now know how to do. And keep creating. And leave me a message. Tell me what you want to learn. And also, please post, if you do one of my tutorials, post pics. Post in the Discord. I want to see what you're learning, and I want to hear your suggestions. And if you guys have tutorials, please post them in the Discord too. We're trying to build a community. All right. I'll see you guys. Have a great weekend. Bye.